Hello. Happy Friday. It's good to see everybody. So many people. My goodness, this is a huge room today. And people still coming in. No themes. No themes today. So with that, let's just get going. Let's start talking to people.
Well, first we do have a birthday shout out, as everybody knows.
Yes.
And it's Sid's birthday shout out. So as per our tradition, if you would come off mute and say your happy birthdays.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy
birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Oh my goodness, beautiful. Thank you.
Happy birthday!
Long life and prosperity.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
So tell us, Sid, how are you celebrating your COVID birthday?
I am going to hang out with a woman called Shauna, who's in one of the boxes here, and we'll chat and maybe watch a movie. I don't know. We haven't figured out what we're going to do. I'll cook something great, or she'll cook something great. I don't know. We'll do something, but we're probably not going out. Do you remember, what's the earliest birthday that you remember? You know what? I remember partly because it jogged by a memory of a photograph. So there's a photograph of a birthday of mine when I was about 6 in an apartment in a London street called Beena Gardens. We had our mum and I were just hanging out together then, and it's 10 years before Thomas arrived. And I remember having some friends over, and I remember 2 of the friends, but I don't recognize anybody else. I don't know, but I remember playing a game which we played traditionally in England called Pass the Parcel, and it was just my favorite game because you had to a huge parcel wrapped a present wrapped in tons of wrapping paper, and you keep passing it on, and you get to take off one sheet of wrapping paper, and then you have to pass it on, and then you just hope you're the person who ends up unwrapping the last piece, and you get the gift. I don't remember getting the gift. And we used to do musical chairs as well. I don't know if you played that in the States.
Yes.
You walk around a row of chairs, and when the music stops, you have to sit down and you push anybody else off. Great fun.
All right. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Early.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for the little works of art. And it's lovely to see you all. It's really, really terrific. Hello.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. Thank you very much. Look at you guys. Thank you. Who is who?
So this is Unmi right here. I'm Roger. I cannot remember for the life of me her name.
I think her name is Coco.
Oh, Coco. You're welcome, Coco. But all 3 of you are very welcome. Are you a family?
We are indeed a family. We all not only do we live together, but we also work together. We have a restaurant in Western Massachusetts. And,
oh my goodness! This is your restaurant.
Yes.
Oh, you have oh my goodness! This is a fun. I've got to tell people what's just happened to me. There is a cookbook, kimchi and curry, and it's my favorite cookbook, and it was given to me, and it was signed by you guys, and you're the real people. You're the people who own this wonderful restaurant.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I'm tempted to go run downstairs and bring it up so that everybody can see it, but I will do. Oh my God, I'm a bit starstruck.
Well, we're delighted to hear that you've enjoyed it. You know, that's what we were going for. So
have you cooked out of it?
So many things out of it, and the only thing that I would tell people is that when you say that things are going to last 10 days in the fridge, make it 20 days. Those things last a lot longer in the fridge. I am still using the hoisin barbecue sauce for the ribs.
Isn't that the best? I love those ribs. Ribs.
We had them just 3 days ago. It was absolutely amazing. So you've named the restaurant after your daughter. That is so touching. That is so cool. How do you mind me asking how old you are, Coco? You don't look old.
Everyone thinks that I'm older than I am. I'm actually 11. Everyone thinks I'm older than I am, and that's completely fine.
Because you just look wise.
Wise and tall.
And tall.
Yeah, she's taller than I am.
Oh my goodness.
This
Oh
one
wow.
follows this one's clothing now.
And people go to Northampton to Coco's for fried chicken. It's one of the things that everybody goes there for. And we had it the first time we went. Of course, COVID arrived, and we're not going out at all, which I'll ask you about in a second. But it just melts in the mouth. And thank goodness it's not in the recipe book, because I don't think you could make it at home.
The key to something like that is there's no secrets to it. You know, it's just about, really, it's honestly about good technique. There's no secret ingredients. There's no anything like that. It's just a matter of, like, you know, figuring out how to do it properly, and then repeat that again and again and again. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I don't think anyone should have a deep fat fryer in their home. They should.
Fair enough. You may be onto something there.
Yes, not just because of the danger, but because of the enormous waste. I mean, you know, you want something deep fried once every 3 months. Yeah. What do you do with the oil for afterwards? So it's a treat to go to yours and have it done properly somewhere. Just delicious. Coco, what's going on in your world? I mean, how are you doing with school and everything like that?
I have been doing remote schooling with my friend, and that's been really helpful, just to be able to have at least one person to kind of just like be able to socialize with, and kind of it's just really nice to do that. We switched houses. Sometimes we even come here to the restaurant to work from online, and that's really good. Yeah.
And what do you do at the restaurant?
So just for working, I actually tonight I'm going to be running the food out to the people, and that's pretty fun to just kind of be able to be in it with my family for the first time.
So we haven't had any customers inside the building since March 12th.
Oh, sorry.
So we've had to figure out a new way to do things, just like everybody else, you know, and I'm proud and happy to say it's working, you know, and that we're able to keep, you know, people employed and people safe, and still get to serve food. So the key, I think, especially in the restaurant industry, the key to getting through this is to stay grateful.
Yeah.
And that's the recipe, I think, for staying mentally healthy, is just remembering that we have jobs, we have a roof over our heads, and we're still getting to do the thing we like. It's certainly changed a little bit, or a lot bit, I guess you would say, but.
Right. So Coco, if I understand this correctly, your mom is the inspiration behind recipes, and your dad is the execution. Is that correct?
Yes. They work well together.
Yeah, I'm the one that creates all the recipes, and sometimes it gets a little bit too complicated, and my husband's the one that kind of brings me down to earth.
I'm sure you don't need bringing down to earth.
To put it into perspective, you know, like, she dreams recipes. Like, I'll be in bed reading a comic book, and she'll be asleep, and she'll wake up and be like, I know what was wrong with that recipe that I saw at the bookstore 2 weeks ago, and then fall back asleep again.
Wow.
And I'll still be reading a comic book. But.
That's all I do. Luckily, I found my passion.
You certainly did.
Be a doctor.
Well, I'll tell you what I made last night, and it didn't go down all that well. It was fine, but it wasn't great, and maybe you could improve on it. But I made some ravioli a couple of days ago, and that was fine. But I had half a piece of pasta left, a chunk of pasta. Mm-hmm. So I bought a packet of organic ground chicken way back and put it in the freezer, because I thought, we're not going to have any there's not been any chicken in 2 weeks. We're going to run out of food. So I made a chicken lasagna, and it doesn't quite work. And there's something not spiky enough about the chicken, so it doesn't really hit home. So there's a challenge for you with fresh pasta, because fresh pasta works so much better in lasagna, because you can have it a little bit thicker, and it's just really yummy to have a thicker slice of pasta in the middle.
What type of sauce did you make for it?
I made a tomato sauce, and I was thinking of putting like capers in it and green chili.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I just went, yeah, I'm going to stay. I make this. There's a Sudanese chili sauce, which Thomas, my brother, makes phenomenally well, which is very simple. It's just green chilies, lime juice, garlic, salt, and it's out of the park good. And I should have put some of that in there, but I maybe Coco, you take off your mom and come up with good recipes.
I don't know how I can live up to her. She's just so good.
I will say, when I got home from work last night, she made me an excellent grilled cheese sandwich, and she put a little pile of mustard next to it.
It was beautiful.
And yeah, that was
I can guarantee you, Coco, that Unmi will be very disappointed if you don't live up to her. She expects you to exceed her. How do you shop? How do you buy food for a restaurant when you absolutely have no idea? I mean, back in the day, 6 months ago, you could buy food and you could be pretty sure you knew how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But once COVID hit, how did you start getting that sorted out? Because it's incredibly expensive to make mistakes.
Well, we work a lot with the local farms. So when COVID hit, it was growing season. So we were supporting the farm.
Yeah.
And we do have really good relationships with different vendors, and that didn't stop.
Good. Okay. So you have I'm not really worried about the supply because there seems to be a lot of food, but just the quantity. How do you figure out when you don't know, you can't buy by the kind of gallon?
Well, it's a learning process. When you first open a restaurant, you're going to run out of, if your food tastes good, you're going to run out of food. It's going to happen an awful lot. And it's only through trial and error that you start to get a better and better idea of how much you're going to need.
Yeah.
And that's a moving target too. How much you're going to need changes week to week. And, depending on, in the pandemic, it depends on a whole nother slew of variables as well.
Yeah. And can I also ask, I'm just asking lots of questions. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of busy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm giddy. What do you do with meals that you can't sell that night? What do you do with food that you want to keep revolving the menu? I mean, you can keep food for a couple of days and put it back on.
Beyond that, we our employees take home a great deal of food. They're very, very well fed, I would say.
Yeah.
I bet.
Also, we make, unlike most restaurants that have very big walk-ins, those walk-ins are like,
walk-in refrigerators.
Big walk-ins. We don't have a walk-in. We just have a lot of reach-ins, like very big refrigerators.
Yeah.
So our restaurant makes food every day. We get deliveries every day because we just don't have room. So that's where there's not as much waste.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've got a plan for my birthday now. I think if you're selling food out the door, do you sell food on Saturdays?
Oh boy, yeah, you should pick up. We'll let us know and we'll make you a birthday meal.
Oh no, I wouldn't dream of it. I'll come totally anonymously, but when I get there, I'll let you know.
Fair enough.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
If you're interested, you could come after the pandemic, come into our kitchen.
Oh, I can't wait. I'd love to. And you seem like such great guys. And we should hang out. It would be an honor for me. And we can talk food.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
So
Thank you.
glad you're enjoying the book.
We have a restaurant that's going to open in about 41 minutes. So we're actually going to have to run upstairs pretty soon here.
But,
Roger, I'm really grateful. Thank you very much for coming in and saying hi. It means the world to me.
Oh, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks, Coco.
Let us know when you order.
Absolutely. All right. I'll try and do that.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys, for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
That restaurant, by the way, is awesome. And you should, but their book, Kimchi and Curry, is crazy good. And every recipe tastes as you imagine it will. It's just brilliant.
I think you've been recommending it since our first social club meeting.
Yes.
So, yes.
Micah. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
That's awesome. Well, I see your smile loud and clear, and I want to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you very much indeed.
My name is Micah Parzan, and I am zooming in from sunny San Diego. And I was asked to come as a special guest to help celebrate your birthday because I am an anthropologist. And I understand that you have some very strong anthropological leanings too. And while you didn't make a career of it, I'm sure everybody in the Zoom is happy about that. I wanted to connect with you and share a little bit about my background and what I do as part of a process of wishing you a happy birthday.
Thank you. That's just terrific. Are you a physical anthropologist or social anthropologist? What area do you kind of is your jam?
So my first course in anthropology was in physical anthropology, and it just did nothing for me whatsoever. I was like, I couldn't care less about this stuff. And I said, oh, I'll try cultural anthropology. I have no idea what that is, but, and I took a course and it just, blew my mind and paved the way for the rest of my life and my career in many ways. For me, the values of anthropology, I really saw it as a philosophical orientation to the world, and the values of sitting in generosity and not in judgment, walking a mile in others' shoes, compassion for all humanity, resonated so deeply with who I was as a person that I just thought, this is for me. And I love it as a field of study, but I really think of it more as a way of being in the world. And I have to confess, I'm not a Trekkie by any stretch, but I did watch some of the social clubs before this, and I can tell that you just sort of ooze an anthropological ethos, and your warmth and your love for people and your just caring, is so evident in this group that you have amassed, and it's no wonder to me that you are beloved.
Thank you, Micah. Could I ask you a question? And it's a controversial one, but I remember it from university, so I'm going to ask you. One of the big debates in anthropology at the time was how much can you intercede? How much can you get involved with people you may live around? And for many anthropologists, they've lived around among groups of people, indigenous people, they're all far flung, not just in tropical places, but also in icy places. I mean, this isn't limited to sort of stereotypical indigenous people, the image that brings to mind. But if you don't know Star Trek, but one of the cardinal rules of Star Trek, the culture of Star Trek, is something called a prime directive. And the prime directive is you must not interfere with the evolution of other people. In this case, it's planets, but obviously the metaphor is clear. So you cannot, it's a bit like that trope where if there's two yous, you can't meet each other, otherwise you both explode or something like that. So how has anthropology evolved? Because when I learned about it, probably before you, I was at university in 1984. It's a fairly nascent subject at university at that time. In college, they hadn't really developed its legs, sea legs. They were kind of trying to do everything. How have anthropologists overcome that element of it being in danger of changing the culture of somewhere you go and visit?
Yeah, such a good question, and still a big question, I imagine, in the field today. The world is so different now, right? And I think we see more evidently how interconnected we all are. Back in the day when Margaret Mead is going to Papua New Guinea, and maybe there had been very little contact, and those kinds of things. Those questions, I think, were more on the landscape of the field of but today, in the age of globalization, there is nobody who's sort of untouched, right? And to sort of even pretend that is a possibility today is sort of doesn't make sense, because the way that the world has been structured through sort of the colonial endeavor and all the traumatic impacts that has had on so many people around the world. Now, I think there's less of an idea that we're sort of interfering. One development in the field along these lines, however, was, you had people from Western countries going to study people from non-Western or under-industrialized countries. And over time, there has been an emergence of indigenous anthropologists who have rightly so said, excuse me, but we don't need you folks anymore. We've got the PhDs too, and we are really well connected to our indigenous background, and we see the world through that lens. Yeah. And so the field has sort of evolved in that sense of like, it's really led to a lot of questions about why are all these sort of white people going out and studying other people when they're perfectly capable of studying themselves. Absolutely. And giving a much more informed perspective based on that. Yeah.
What's your story? How did you get involved, and how did you set out on this extraordinary career? Because this is a really interesting career.
Yeah, happy to share. And, it all started with that first class and that sort of mind-blowing experience. And I just couldn't get enough of all things anthropology, and the idea that, our way of organizing the world is only one of many and thousands of thousands. And, we can look at the cultures of the world both as a reminder that if we don't like how things are going in our own backyard, we can do something about it. We can do things differently. And then the cultures of the world really being a tools in a toolbox to sort of, well, maybe we'll try this. Maybe we'll try this. Always loved anthropology. I was so passionate about it. I got the PhD. I did my field work on the Navajo Nation in Arizona and New Mexico. I am a what you call a medical anthropologist and a psychological anthropologist. And I was studying something called wilderness therapy, sort of like outward bound, used as a mental health intervention for Navajo kids, trust building exercise, river rafting, backpacking. I was studying how it connected with Navajo cultural psychology and how it didn't, and had the humbling privilege of living out on the Navajo Nation with a Navajo family for a year or so. And then I actually ended up going to law school. And I got a law degree, and I wanted to proliferate my options. And I practiced corporate law in a big law firm here in San Diego for many years, labor and employment law in particular. Did a lot of nonprofit work over the years in the community, served on a lot of boards, did a lot of pro bono legal work. And about 10 or 11 years ago, I was approached by a museum here in San Diego that was then called the San Diego Museum of Man, an anthropology museum that was envisioned as one of the great museums of the Southwest. And they were asking me to join the board. And I had gotten very disillusioned with the practice of law and felt that it was really eating away at my soul over many years. And I wanted to do something that would really feed my soul. Yeah. And in the process of being recruited for the board, they told me that they had just hired a search firm to do a national search for a new CEO. And I kind of had a light bulb moment, and I thought, oh my God, that would be amazing. I could get back to my passion, and I threw my name in the hat and I got the job. Oh, so I have been the CEO of the museum for the last 10 years. And it was the most amazing decision I made in my life, and has just been extraordinarily rewarding. After 10 years and after about 100 years of being in existence, and really committing to a path of anti-racism work and decolonizing work, and being a leader in that field, the museum back in August, we changed our name from the San Diego Museum of Man to the Museum of Us, as an effort to be much more inclusive and shed the sort of shackles of our past, and double down on that kind of work. And so it's been extremely rewarding.
Wow, what a privilege to curate a museum like that, and to help decide what kind of things that we might find edifying and entertaining at the same time. We sort of do the same work, actors and you, because we're trying to slide a little bit of edification in under the door, but we're entertaining as you know, we're exciting to look at. We're trying, at least we try.
Absolutely. In fact, I do know enough about Star Trek to really say that Captain Kirk and all those folks, and I'm sure Deep Space Nine and all the work you did is a continuation of that. Those folks are the ultimate anthropologists. You know, they're going where no man has gone before and meeting, instead of people of different ethnicities and colors and, you know, shapes and sizes, they're actually interacting with folks with 3 heads and all sorts of weird stuff, and trying to answer the same questions that we're all trying to answer, which is, how do we get along for the betterment of our species, right? Broadly defined.
That's something that's preoccupying me today. It's causing me, I'm not stressing out about it, but I'm really kind of, I'm concerned, deeply concerned about how do we all get along?
Yeah.
Where does it come from? The bottom up, top down? Does it come in from the side? Do we need an intervention from God? It seems that we are so far apart right now. Just ordinary people living in the same town. We're not talking about people coming from Africa. We're not talking about colonialization. You know, this is much more meta. I mean, it's much more right here, right in front of us, where the air we breathe, we share with people who distrust us for ideology. How do we start helping each other in terms of our families, in terms of, there's always going to be someone who doesn't agree, but quite violently these days. And there seems to be a freedom to be violent in disagreement, not violent physically, but violent, aggressive, verbally. Where do we start?
Yeah, I certainly can't speak for all anthropologists, but as one,
I'm curious in just your opinion, because we ask everybody's opinion on here.
I think about this issue all the time as well. And for me, it really starts from a place of love. You know, everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to belong. And everybody wants to be in that safe space where they feel heard and seen. And if you can start from that place, we are able to tap into that place where we really get that we are more alike than different, and that our differences is what makes us so beautiful. And that in fact, we all sort of come from the same source, right? We're all, you know, one of the things I think about and repeat a lot is Martin Luther King's statement that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it does, you know, it doesn't always bend at the pace we want it to bend, and it doesn't always bend in the ways we want it to bend, but it bends towards justice, and it bends towards a greater good. And it bends towards love. And I do believe deep in my heart that every one of our museums and nonprofits and organizations are really here to support the bend of that universe. And that if we are just loyal to that and we stick with that, and I think that every one of us as humans is here to sort of get in touch and discover what our unique gifts are and what our unique genius is, and to use those to support that bend in one way or another. And I think we just lose our way. We get all the things that distract us and the messages we receive that are counter to that. But that when we're at our best, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I mean, I think it goes back to that. There's some things that you mentioned, Margaret Mead, and her time in New Guinea, and her discovery of the matriarchal society of sorts, but the reciprocity, a society that was based in reciprocity. And that was really interesting to me, because I think that we can connect to each other linguistically, just people we know, by just swapping things, swapping gifts. And those gifts are verbal. And it's not about saying someone looks nice. That's a bit of objectification a little bit, but it's more of it be encouraging and then give something interesting that you know, and see if someone is willing to give that back. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we've kind of established in the club, because we talk very candidly here. People have been very open, especially about things that hurt them. and about things they like. And I think every culture will get on a lot better if you think of it not as someone who's going to take something away from you, but someone who's going to give you something.
That's right. Yeah. And somebody I saw briefly in the chat mentioned empathy, and you know, you're sort of tapping into the power of vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness, right?
Yeah.
It's so often characterized as a weakness, and yet it's what sort of creates conditions that really help others be seen and feel heard, that you know, you're going through something too, and you can relate to what I'm going through and all this stuff that I hide. And so I think, you know, we have a lot to learn from particularly Indigenous peoples, right? Who have been going down such a wise path since time immemorial, and stewarding the land and taking care of each other. And not that everything was perfect, because it wasn't, right? But you know, we look around us and we see the world we live in now. And you know, I've got two boys, 17 and almost 13, and it's a scary world to be sort of living in for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And how do we find a better way is really, I think, what people like you and the work that we're doing are really trying to set the table for, so the next generation can.
We've got to figure it out, haven't we?
Yeah.
Well, Micah, I couldn't be more grateful for your appearing, and especially the generosity of turning up here and sharing some of these thoughts and wisdoms. And yeah, we're going to hatch a plan. We're going to figure it out.
Love it. Well, I hope you have a wonderful birthday tomorrow. And I love being introduced to this group of wonderful people. It seems like there's a lot of love and caring.
There is.
And you've created such amazing conditions for that to occur. And I sincerely hope our paths cross again at some point.
You're welcome back anytime. And,
all right.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you so much.
It's brilliant. That was really brilliant.
Hello.
Hello, Harry.
Hey, Sid, how are you?
Very good indeed, thank you. Thrilled that you're here. Thank you very much.
Harry, your camera's still off.
It's okay.
The camera is still off. Hang on one second here. I'm actually trying to set up to cook a DS9 dish for you.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to surprise you with a Kardashian interpretation by Harry Sue. And
oh my goodness.
We're going to try to make a live cook session work here. And how are you?
I am very well indeed. I'm again slightly amazed that you're here. You're talking to me. This is amazing.
Well, I'm a big fan of your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
When Mel contacted me, she kind of caught me off guard.
I've been watching all your YouTube videos, and I've been I've been telling everybody about them, and I'm still kind of digesting the fact that you're here.
Well, I am here to celebrate with you and
it's crazy. What's going on?
Talk about all the wonderful ways to spread love in this world.
Ah, Harry.
And, while we're talking, there's nothing like doing a little talking and a little cooking, and see if we can answer any of your questions, and perhaps any of the questions from the viewers.
Oh, I have watched you cook. I've watched hours of you. I've watched you cook briskets. I've watched you pick out meat. I've watched you cook pork butts. I've watched you everything. And your care and attention for health, hygiene, and making sure that you just throw everything away and don't try and put it under the tap and do all that stuff. Right from the beginning to the end, I watched those videos, and this is just mad. I feel like I've walked into the looking glass because YouTube is now talking back to me. I'm amazed.
Sid, likewise, and I'm a fan of your work, and many people around the world love your humor and your humanity.
Thank you, Harry. Well, I've got to tell everybody that Harry is a champion barbecue pitmaster. There's nothing he can't cook. And he's been my inspiration this past couple of years, and especially since COVID hit, because I just sit watching YouTube videos of Harry and colleagues of his. And there is such a thing as being a champion pitmaster. You do meet a bunch of other people and you compete for the best cooked piece of brisket or what have you. And he's one of those guys who's won several things.
Well, the journey of barbecue parallels the journey in life. And I think you kind of know my story, Sid. I am an accidental pitmaster. I never set up to cook barbecue. By day, I work in the IT world, and I build data centers for a living. And a few years ago, actually 10 years ago, there was a movie called The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. I don't know if you've seen that movie. Yeah, and that movie prompted some of my project managers at work to say that we should do something with our lives before we kick the bucket. And we wrote down a list of things that we were going to do. So let's say, Sid, I always knew you said you wanted to water ski, but you never water ski. I'll write you a stretch goal, Sid, to go take a water skiing class. For me, they knew I like to cook barbecue in my backyard for my family and friends. And they say, Harry, why don't you, for a stretch goal, go and compete in a contest like the ones you see on TV? So I said, well, it's okay. I'll humor my coworkers. And I said I would go and cook one contest. And after a lot of prodding and persuading, I finally decided I'll just cook one contest in Palm Springs. I live in Los Angeles. And one contest would allow me to complete my bucket list. So I showed them the application form that I had filled in to enter the contest in Palm Springs. And they looked at the form and said, what did you call your team? I said, oh, I call my team the bucket list, because it will be a one-time throwaway name that I would never use again. And they said, no, that's boring, Harry. Let's come up with a fun name for your team. So I said, I really don't care. Anything you want to call my team is fine. I'm just going to do it one time just to, amuse you guys and get you off my back for this bucket list. So they said that apparently one of my coworkers is from the South, and when you're from the South and you eat something you really, really like, it'd be so good that you want to go and slap somebody. So since I'm a daddy, they said, why don't you call your team name Slap Yo Daddy? So I said, that's a stupid name for a barbecue team. So that was 10 years ago. And I won my first contest, and the rest of they say is history. I've had the opportunity to cook around the world, done many, many classes. And more recently, some people told me that, why don't you put what you do on your cell phone? So I said, well, who would want to watch this guy cooking barbecue, shooting footage on his cell phone? Well, that was about a year and a half ago. And, I have Sid as one of my fans. So go figure.
Absolutely. I've been subscribed to your channel for months and months and months. And I highly recommend other people do too. What really drew me to you is that you were surprising. If you tell anybody to picture a great American pitmaster, just picture it. They might come up with any number of kind of caricatures.
Images, yes. I don't fit the image.
Defy that. And I love that. I really love that. And that's one of the things, apart from your talent and your real patience and the way you explain things and the time and how you don't let anything go. If there's an important thing, you help people figure out how to get to it. One of the things that's really hard in barbecue is temperature conservation, maintenance, especially over long cooks. And you're really careful about telling people how to do that. So yeah, gosh.
Yeah, it's all about, understanding a little bit of food science and understanding what we call the science and the art of barbecue.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they cook with the art, but they don't sort of understand the science. So I'm a kind of a nerdy, techno-weenie kind of person. So I tend to get into a lot of kind of like the food science to explain to people what makes great barbecue. Because I think a lot of people who try to cook American barbecue, they are surprised at how hard it is. I had students who are professional chefs who run large restaurant chains. And they try their hand in cooking barbecue, and they realize that it's not anything that they learn in the Culinary Institute, because cooking barbecue requires a different set of skills and a different set of food science that you don't typically get when you go through a culinary academy program.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I wanted to show you what I have here, and
please do.
To give you a little riff. So what I try to do is, I guess, on Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
Your character was Dr. Bashir, right?
Indeed.
And you had a buddy, Miles O'Brien.
Yes, I did.
And yeah, and Miles' character was he had a wife, I believe, right? His wife was Keiko. Keiko. So apparently there was an episode where Keiko invited Rugal and her husband Miles to eat a Kardashian dish. And I guess your character on the show, Dr. Bashir, was good friends with Elim Garak, who is a Kardashian.
That's right.
And so I guess for the people who perhaps are not aware, the Kardashians are a humanoid species, right, from the Alpha Quadrant.
Yep.
And they were native of a planet they call Cardassia Prime.
That's absolutely right. I'm impressed.
So the dish that you ate, they featured on the show, was called a Zabu stew with yamak sauce. So I kind of scratched my head and say, okay, Yabu stew with yamak sauce. So I kind of sat down and figured out, okay, the Yabu stew is supposedly some kind of meat in a white broth. And then the yamak sauce is some kind of like gravy. So what I decided to do is I came up with my little concoction since I like to barbecue. So I decided the Zabu meat could be essentially brisket. And then the white broth, I could do some of my favorite grits. And then the yamak sauce is something that I borrowed from Hawaii. If you've been to Hawaii and had something called loco moco, which is the hamburger patty on rice smothered with the brown gravy, I kind of made a yamak sauce.
Wow.
So that was my little homage to you.
Oh my
on your
goodness.
birthday, to pay tribute to the character you played on DS9.
That is just so mean. I can't eat any of it. You're showing me the most delicious looking food and I can't reach through the screen and get it.
I'll try to plate it now and see if I can get this to work here. And
I love your brisket too. It's got great smoke.
Well, yeah,
lovely and moist.
I have 50 episodes on how to cook brisket, so you can definitely watch some of the videos and tell your fans if they want to cook.
I absolutely do. I recommend it. Everybody should watch the video.
I hope you can see this here. Am I in frame? More or less?
Perfectly in frame.
It's hard to cook and without a monitor and looking at the back of your phone.
No, you're doing great.
People can see what you're doing. All right, so here's the, I guess, the closest thing to a yamak sauce.
It's a
you can tell I'm making this up as I go. All right, and we've got the yamak stew with a white broth. So let me pretend like this is the white broth.
Oh, the grits. This is delicious. This will be delicious.
All right, and then let me plate the yamak, the zabu meat. I guess get some zabu meat on the plate here.
Wow.
And a little bit of Kardashian garnish.
Harry, you're a genius.
All right, and there you have it. A little bit of a zabu stew with yamak sauce, going out to you, Sid, and all your fans on your Sid City podcast.
Mouth-watering, my friend. That is awesome. Harry, you're just that's so kind. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, you took time out of your busy day. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
So if any of your viewers want to enjoy Thanksgiving, I guess for all of us, right, me included, this will be a very unusual Thanksgiving where we don't have family. We're just kind of going to have to do it by ourselves. And we want to make sure that, we can even cook for one person. So I'm going to be posting a video soon, probably on Sunday, showing people how to cook Thanksgiving dinner for one person. Because I know there's so many people out there that are, encountering the emotional and the physical isolation challenges of COVID.
Yeah, that's
And,
really generous of you.
I want to do a shout out to all the people, because a lot of people realize that you don't always have to have everybody around you to be a happy person, because the happiness that you feel in your life can be simply accomplished by knowing three things. Understanding gratitude, because gratitude leads to thankfulness, and then thankfulness leads to happiness. So people who are unhappy, they have one common characteristic, is they're never grateful, because when you're never grateful, you don't know how to be thankful. And when you're never thankful, you cannot be happy. So I always tell people, when you wake up in the morning and you can move your toes and you are alive, it's a great day. So go out to the world and spread some love, because love is like a little boomerang, and you want to toss it out to the universe, and that boomerang will spin around the universe and hit you on the side of the head, way, way bigger than you possibly imagine. I know, because I have a little tiny YouTube channel that I put out barbecue love to people, and I teach people how to master barbecue so they can spread barbecue love. And that little boomerang of love, I know from all the feedback I received, have touched a lot of people. Similarly to the work that you're doing right now, Sid, about putting on this little 2-hour Zoom session for a lot of people who need that emotional connection, that physical connection, that sense of society and humanity that we are all trying to share with each other.
Thank you so much. That's really, that's lovely. It's a touching gesture. And I couldn't be more grateful. And for those who do watch Harry's videos, please watch them. They are really wonderful. He's so entertaining. But start at the beginning. Watch his videos on how to choose the product you're going to cook, and then work on the actual cooking. And then you'll be in good shape, because picking the right meat is the secret to at least one of the secrets to great barbecue. Thank you, my friend, and thank you for the Cardassian stew.
my best approximation of a Cardassian.
You're amazing, Harry. And what you do for everybody is amazing too.
We'll let everybody have another look at it here.
Thank you.
It doesn't look half bad.
It looks delicious.
Really
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
It looks delicious.
And then Mr. Beans is waiting for his share here.
Hi.
Saying, when are you gonna feed me, right? He's waiting for the brisket. Just relaxing in the sun, waiting to get a taste of the Zabu stew yamak sauce.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Harry. I couldn't be more grateful.
I was gonna say, if you have questions about how to cook barbecue, feel free to drop me a line on my YouTube channel, on my comments, or if you want to email me, I shared my email with people. It's harsoo@yahoo.com. And I'll be happy to help anyone out with their cooking or barbecue questions, especially in that stressful period next week, which is Thanksgiving. I cannot tell you how many people have asked me, like, how do you actually prepare a turkey for themselves, because they've always been used to going to a party, but this time a lot of people are cooking at home and they just have no idea how to even go buy a turkey and how to cook it. On Sunday, hopefully I'll be able to share some simple, no recipe turkey for one special episode.
Fantastic. I've got one question, because we're preparing something. I've ordered a turkey from our local farm shop. I think it's getting delivered, any day now, because it's just a local turkey. I won't see it before I buy it. We just potluck, because we want a 6 to 8 pound turkey, tiny turkey. I've got a Weber Smoky Mountain out there, and I've also got a Yamamoto, whatever it's called, that kind of grill as well.
Okay.
I was thinking of brining it and then smoking it. Would you recommend smoking a turkey?
Absolutely. I think that a smoked turkey is a wonderful, wonderful way to prepare your special Thanksgiving turkey. My recommendation is, as you probably have heard, that turkey is a little bit dry. So in terms of brining, you have primarily two methods, right? There's one method called a dry brine, and the second method called a wet brine. So one, it requires a liquid, and some people prefer not to have to deal with a wet brine. So they do a dry brine. So what I would recommend for you is if you want to do a dry brine, sprinkle salt on your turkey about a couple of days out. Now, what day are you getting your turkey?
When my wife knows. When are we getting our turkey, Shana?
I believe Monday or Tuesday.
Okay,
there you go.
Okay, good. Yeah, if you get it Thursday, it's a little bit late.
Thank you.
So if you're getting it Monday, you can do a couple of things, right? Well, one of my favorite ways that's really simple that gives you a championship result is to put some like a light layer of salt on the turkey. Let it rest in the refrigerator for 1 hour. That allows the salt ions to penetrate the microfibrils of protein to kind of salt the turkey. And then what you do is you take the whole turkey, you put it into a 2.5 gallon Ziploc bag, and then you take 2 quarts of buttermilk that you buy from the grocery store, and you pour that in, together with 4 tablespoons of salt. That would create a hybrid dry brine and a wet marinade to give you a professional result.
Wow.
So you let the turkey sit overnight. So you want to probably do this kind of on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, take it out, right? And then let the buttermilk drain, kind of wipe it off with a wet towel, and then cook it in your Weber Smoky Mountain. Set it up for between 325 and 350. You're not going to be cooking the turkey low and slow like 250 because you want the skin to be kind of tender and crispy, kind of like what I call a rotisserie chicken from Costco type of skin.
Yeah.
So you want to cook the turkey around 325. Once you cook the turkey, right, a couple of things will happen. You need to baste the turkey with a spray butter, and that will result in that Norman Rockwell kind of brown turkey look. And the one I like to use is you can get it from Walmart. It's called, I can't believe it's not butter. It's just a little spray bottle. So what you want to do is you want to spritz the turkey as you're cooking it about every, say, 15, 20 minutes with that butter. It's going to take you about, you said 8 pounds, right? So 8 pounds will be about at 325, about 2.5 hours from start to end.
Great.
And cook it with the cavity open. Don't put your stuffing. Cook your stuffing on the side. And in my video on Sunday, I'll show you how to make all the stuffing and all the side dishes, including a pumpkin pie from nothing. It's just a Walmart recipe. Everything was pulled off the shelf at Walmart. For my single people out there who don't even know how to boil water, that's a super simple recipe. And your turkey should be cooked in about 2.5 hours. I also like to spritz with water because water keeps it moist. And then after you pull the turkey out, my video shows you how to essentially carve the turkey so it's completely deboned. So you'll be serving a turkey reassembled on a platter that looks just like a turkey, but there's no bones. Wow. And then there's going to be a gravy to go with it, and your family will be absolutely amazed.
Yippee, Harry, you're brilliant. You're brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the tips. And by the way, this whole group are over 120 recipes we have compiled from around the world. Everybody's favorite recipes, their mom's recipe, or whatever they thought was right for there is a downloadable on our website. So if you want the complete list of recipes from around, heirloom recipes from around the world, just out of curiosity, it's there if you're ever interested.
I did take a look at it. Sid, fantastic piece of work. Kudos to your crew and the people who helped put it all together. I know it's a lot of work to assemble recipes, and that definitely is a treasure that everybody can enjoy and share.
Thank you. Thanks, my friend.
Harry, thanks so much for coming.
All right, guys. Happy Turkey Day. Gobble, gobble, everyone.
Don't forget to write Harry if you've got questions for him.
Yeah, Mel can leave my email on the chat, and if you want to email me, by all means. And then you can go check me out on YouTube. Just search for Harry Sue.
Brilliant.
All right. Thanks, guys. Catch you guys later.
Thank you, Harry.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Oh, my goodness.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Lord
I heard it was a formal occasion, so I thought I would dress appropriately.
You look absolutely fabulous. What, are you kidding?
And I'm calling to you from my New York abode at the moment, and I understand you have a little bit of history with at least unknowing of the Ultima series and Lord British. But that's actually the original Apple II computer. I wrote all my the games that I developed for the first 20 years of my career on.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Gosh, this is just like a kind of, I'm just getting inundated with some of my heroes, some of the people who are just amazing to me in my life. Tell everybody what you do and how.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, as I'm looking around, I'm seeing a few folks of our era. But I'm also seeing quite a few folks that are a bit younger that might not know. But so for those of you on the younger side, my real name is actually Richard Garriott. I changed my name on screen to Lord British because that was my nom de plume for basically the last 45 years. I'm one of the very first ever developers of computer games. If you're not old enough to remember a series of games that I wrote called Ultima that go from the late 70s up till now, Ultima Online is actually still being played today. But if you haven't heard of the game series, I'm sure most everybody's familiar with the term avatar these days. The word avatar in its modern use in gaming actually comes from my games. The category of games referred to as massively multiplayer games, MMOs, also comes from my games. So I got in early and I was prolific as a creator.
You are in the pantheon of computer gods. Your game, Ultima Online, is my favorite game of all time.
Thank you.
We played it for 7 years. I played it before you guys closed, made it when it was in the early 90s.
Yes, when it still was all in.
When it was pretty Wild West. It was
a unified world before we split it into two parts so that people could have a safe.
And it was dangerous.
Palooka split, we called it.
It was amazing. And if you got killed by somebody, I mean a real person,
they took all
your stuff.
All your stuff. Everything you're carrying.
So you literally were just terrified when you encountered people. And it was boy, was it exciting. My goodness.
It definitely was good fun.
How did you stumble into stumbling is probably the wrong word, but how did you go right?
Yeah, so I actually came of age at exactly the same. I was in high school right as personal computers like that one, came into existence, and so and it's also the same year as the game Dungeons and Dragons was first becoming popular. Right, it was one of the very first people on the shelf, actually behind that Apple II computer is you can't really probably see it out here on that shelf, but my original 3 books, saddle stitched books from Dungeons and Dragons is up there on the shelf. In fact, I was playing early enough. I actually got to role play game with Gary Gygax. So, I have my Gary Gygax game character sheet up there on the wall too. And so, playing D&D, reading The Lord of the Rings, and this emergence of these new machines, the personal computers, that was just, what else are you going to do except start writing games? So right in high school, I started writing games and started, generating an income. And then right as I, left, barely made it out of high school and started into college, and my growth and average went down. And so it made obviously now turns out to be a really good decision, but it was a tough decision at the time to drop out of college to go, to go make games. Turns out that was an okay decision. My parents used to tell me when I was younger that, when this windfall ends, you can go back to school, finish your degree, and go get a real job.
Yeah, do something proper. Right. Do you write the program as well as the story?
Yes. So for 20 years, now it takes a team of 300 to 500 people and 3 to 5 years, just like a movie does.
Yeah.
And but back in the early days, I did everything. I wrote the code, wrote every character, drew the art. There were no tools to draw art. I actually had to make pixels show up on the screen. I had to draw like an image on graph paper that I thought I might want to have show up. Then I'd have to convert that into binary, literally zeros and ones. And I have to convert the binary into hexadecimal, which was the way you could type it into the computer. Then when I typed those values into the computer, then I had to write code to copy those hexadecimal values into the area of memory that was hopefully the screen. And if the shape that showed up on screen was what I drew on graph paper, hooray. But if it wasn't, I'd go like, well, I have to debug the art, literally from where did I make the mistake? Was it the graph paper? Was it the binary? Was it the hexadecimal? Was it the code? And so that was just to make anything show up on screen. So yes, everything that was in a Calibeth, which was sort of the prequel, which I have a Calibeth, the prequel, the original thing that I made. through all 9 Ultimas and Ultima, well, through let's see, the time I was working solo was up through about Ultima 5. After that, it started taking teams. And by the time we get around to Ultima Online, and especially the things we've done since then, we're talking now tens to hundreds.
Very sophisticated stuff. But what I really, what is so crucially important about you trailblazing the online MMORP world, it's really difficult to say, by the way, is I played with people for years, the same people. We made friends, and I didn't know them. We never talked about real life.
Yep.
But we talked about the game. I had things I didn't really want to share with everybody. I just thought it would ruin it for them if I was on TV at the same moment that they were playing. It sort of just kind of makes it uninteresting. So we all kept secrets. But eventually, we told each other things. And one of the people who was playing a tank, for people who don't know what a tank is, it's the guy who takes all the damage and does a little bit of damage, but takes all the damage, is really the archetype. And you keep him alive, that's what you're doing, so that your people who do lots of damage can do lots of damage on the side. And it turned out that he was suffering from a debilitating disease, and he hadn't been out of his house for many years. And it was complete opposite of what his on-screen persona. But what I loved about that is it allowed him to express himself in as important and valid a way as any other. And it made me go, wow, well, I have a friend who surprised me. I didn't know, because the biggest, the strongest guy in our whole group is one of the most vulnerable. And it goes the same for Black people and white people, women and men. Unlikely partnerships that people don't realize. You could be the most strident racist, the most proud racist, but you have been playing with the blackest man on the planet for 3 years.
Yes, you wouldn't know.
And he is your comrade. Yes, he saved your life a million times. That is what I love. That's what that unlocked for me. And I just found that so beautiful. And I couldn't be more grateful to you and the others like you who pioneered this.
Oh, well, thank you very kindly. I feel very fortunate to have, been sort of at the right place at the right time to get off on the founding, era. Obviously, I'm sure you likely feel similarly in your own crafts. I now, when I work with teams, pretty much every person on the team in their field of work and study are clearly superior to whatever I was. I was immediately dwarfed by any artist we hired. I pretty quickly was overrun by the programmers. I mean, I was an okay programmer, but all the real programmers, were far better. I held my own as a designer. I think I still hold my own as a designer pretty well. But at least on a individual discipline of skills, I've been easily surpassed by all of my staffers. It's been a fun journey to get a chance to be at the ground floor of the emergence of an industry. And as you may know, I'm actually getting to be in the emergence of 2 industries. So I'm dressed in my video game persona at the moment. But throughout my career in video gaming, as I've earned money, almost all, in fact, all the personal investing that I've done that wasn't done by banks and managers, all my personal investing has been to open up commercial human spaceflight, frankly, so I could go myself.
Wow.
And after 30 years of investing in a bunch of near misses, finally 10 years ago, I made the trip. So I actually don't have any rocket model. Well, I have a little Sputnik model, I guess, on the desk. But
oh my goodness.
But I often have rocket models here on the back too, depending on who I'm talking to. Because 10 years ago, I took a 2-week trip up to go live aboard the International Space Station.
That is
through companies that I helped build out of profits in the gaming industry.
That is astonishing. What an astonishing thing to have done. How did that feel? I mean, it's one thing dreaming about it. It's another thing doing it. Obviously, the slight terror as you take off.
What's interesting is you're aware of the statistical danger of the launch and reentry periods, but you're actually so caught up in doing the work of making it happen, make it happen well, because you have a job to do that if you don't do, at the very least, the rocket doesn't go, and at worst, bad things happen to everybody on board. Yeah. And so you're paying, you're doing your work very with great focus. And so there's actually not a part of it that ever really felt scary. You sort of put that away, long before the actual launch day. Right. But it is awesome in the proper use of the word. Yeah. From the moment that you walk up to a fully fueled rocket, standing on the launch pad, covered in frost, cold air and fog streaming down the sides of it. It's creaking and groaning and popping and venting the whole time. You're standing beside it, much less ride up a little rickety elevator and climb inside. Yeah. And then when you light that thing up, you might expect it to drop into the clutch on a dragster on a race car. On a Russian Soyuz, it actually lifts quite gently and smoothly. Yeah. So it's hard to detect the actual moment of first movement, but the pressure begins to build up in your chest, and the pressure gets heavier and heavier and heavier up into 4 or 5 Gs of pressure. And that pressure lasts for almost exactly 8.5 minutes. Engines cut off, and you are free floating in space. And so it's a pretty phenomenal, relatively short trip to go from sitting still on the ground to orbiting.
How long did it take you to get to Soyuz?
To the space station?
Yeah.
You're actually, when you launch, you're actually pretty close already. You're sort of chasing it around the Earth in a similar orbit. But they actually don't push together and dock until about a day later. And they wait that full day to just make sure that you have command authority over your capsule so that you can dock safely without crashing into the space station.
Yeah.
And so,
because you're going at quite an astonishing speed, aren't you? I mean,
it's 17,210 miles an hour.
That is crazy. And what's what you obviously you never stopped. You never went, right, I've made one of the defining games of all time and I'm going to chill, or I'm going to start playing soccer.
No. Last year I wrote a book called Explore, Create. I think I'm a big believer that if you want to create things that are original, if you want to do original creative work, you really have to cast a wide net. You have to take your inspiration. If you make games and all you take your inspiration from is other games, especially like your own or your competitors, all you're going to do is iterate on what you've done or what your competitors have done. Yeah. And it's the only way to really do something that's really radical and has any form of breakthrough associated with it is to be inspired by things that aren't nearby. And so I'm a big believer that, one of the things that helped me do this was, in fact, this library right behind me is when I decided I wanted to do games about virtues, I then had to go history and philosophy were my least favorite subjects in school. But now I have a need of it. So now I actually want to learn it. And so you go out and you buy a library on the subject matter and you tear it through it. And then you can do some work that nobody else has done in gaming because nobody's ever bothered to try to put in verses into gaming.
I'm so looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward. Can you give us the name of your book again, just in case anybody would like to look it up?
Explore, Create.
Perfect.
2 words, Explore, Create.
And where do you think the future of gaming is going to go? Because they're doing all this. This is a boring journalist question. So, I'm interested in it. So I'd be curious to know what you think. They're doing all this virtual tech.
Yeah, I've got my VR goggles and such here beside me. So
it is quite something. I think they're quite amazing. But from a social point of view, they're a non-starter because you can't sit next to people when you're in a bubble.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been a VR fan. Even back for the Apple II, there was this really terrible set of goggles that was made with low frame rate, screens about the size of your thumbnail, 100 pixels by 100 pixels or so. Terrible lag, used to make you terribly sick. And when we saw those, we're going, 10 years from now, VR is going to be great. And then 10 years later, it got better. And we go, wow, this is better. But 10 years from now, VR is going to be great. And so I have pretty much perpetually said 10 years from now, it's going to be great. Maybe by now I might say 5 years from now, maybe it'll be great. But I don't know. But the problem is you still have to don and duff something that's pretty heavy. Like you've noticed, you can't really see the world around you very well. I think augmented reality, which a lot of people say will fix the problem, has other issues associated with it. But that's slowly being tackled. But here's to answer your first question, which is what I think about the future. Here's the curse of being a game maker. You know, machines are getting faster and faster all the time. That's a good thing because we have more power to make great games.
We're going quantum, baby.
Absolutely. Soon, I hope. But the path to more power is not smooth, right? It's lumpy. You know, for example, if you go back to, you know, when I first bought this machine, it didn't even have disk drives. We stored on cassette tapes. And so a disk drive was a big deal. And then hard drives. And actually, even before hard drives, we went from 5.25 to 3.5-inch drives, then hard drives, then CD-ROM, then the internet, then 3D hardware, 3D render pipelines, etc. And the thing about this is that in the lulls, in the 5 years when there's not a major jump, to compete with the latest and greatest first-person shooter, you have to write a game that's deeper. And in my mind, deeper is good.
Yeah.
You know, so instead of just running around and shooting, you have med packs. And then after that, you have an inventory. And after that, you have NPCs that talk to you. And after that, you might even have a story that's relevant to you as a human.
Yeah.
But then what happens is there's another major technological shift and everything resets back to the most popular game being sold is a simple first-person shooter. And then it takes 5 years for people to write a deeper game. And then, oh, now it's the internet. Now you can shoot each other. So now it's back to a simple first-person shooter. And you go, okay, now it gets deeper a little bit for 5 years. And then suddenly, oh, 3D hardware. We can now do smoke and bullet cam and stuff. And we're going like, every 5 years it resets to just being a really, you know, simple game that that is not very interesting for me as frankly, as a creator or a player. But it also means that every few years, the games like I like to make, if you're a little bit deeper, are popular, and every few years they're not popular because first-person shooters have dominated again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that what you've done is astonishing, and I mean, really astonishing, a real contribution. And so, I mean, even as far as a deadbeat dad like me, you kept me in touch with my son through all the years that I wasn't living in the same country in a way that bonded us ready to be friends because we helped each other, not just how you doing, how was school. It's like, no, daddy, I shot him in the face for you. We're good. You know, it's so healthy, and it can be dangerous in when you over
all of the above. You know,
all of the above.
My kids are 6 and 8, and you know, for the first few years, I felt like a great dad because I could curate some excellent, you know, software for them. You know, now, of course, I can't stop them from curating their own software, for better or worse. But also, I'm now to the point where they're doing things on their own devices that I really don't understand how they're doing them or how they learned it. And so they're having to help me. And I'm just going like, oh, man, you know, I'm supposed to be like one of the, you know, foundational pillars of this industry, and my kids have surpassed me. So rats.
Good. Good. It means that will carry on. There will be brilliant people coming out of your house in the future.
Well, but by the way, I got to circle back and say, hey, you've also had a great career doing some great work, had a wonderful opportunity to be involved in some phenomenal projects, and I was excited to be able to jump in here and wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
You know, Melissa, I think did a phenomenal job putting all this together. I understand it was it as much of a surprise as she might have hoped?
It's a complete surprise. I had absolutely no idea this was happening.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to get all this many people together.
All these amazing people, top of their field, leaders in their field.
So I'm honored to have gotten a chance to play a little part of it.
I'm humbled, and I can't thank you enough. I really can't. For all kinds of things.
Hey, Sid, some of your gamer friends are with us. I wondered if they wanted to come off mute and have a quick chat. Colin and Robert.
Oh, mate, Mr. Garriott, sir. Hello. Sorry, Sid and I played Ultima Online for 7 years together. We're real life friends, and I just want to say thank you for one of the best games ever. And everything that Sid said about it is totally true.
Thank you. I've been watching your reactions to Sid's and me talking about it. I actually think your reactions were the best of anybody I can at least get unreadable. And so it was obvious that you knew exactly these tales were.
Oh God! Well, I mean, you mentioned Gary Gygax, and I'm like, what? Oh my God, that's awesome! It's just, you know, I'm a total nerd geek. You know, one of those guys, and that's. I just want to say thank you, and it's Sid's day. I just want to back off now and say thank you, and thank you, Mel, for letting me do this. That's so.
Colin and I spent 2 hours laughing hysterically because we couldn't board a boat in Ultima Online. We just couldn't figure it out. We couldn't work out the mechanics. We kept jumping into the water.
That is so, God, to this day, that is literally 2 hours, Ian, Sid, and myself just trying to get off a boat, and our little sprite would, like, one of us would get off the boat onto the island. We go, how did you do that? I go, I don't know. Look, I'll show you. You'd get on the boat again, and you wouldn't be able to get off. And for 2 hours, we were crying with laughter, literally
so incompetent.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know the stories of since Ultimas, all of the Ultimas were meant to be. Now it's often referred to as a sort of a sandbox game. In other words, it was a bunch of tools to interact with the world, all wrapped into the engine. And so some of the emergent behaviors were things that I had no idea would happen. Right, so people would try things I didn't expect. And one of the things that happened starting very early on was people would like to go around and kill all the NPCs in my game, and that would especially mean me. So Lord British. And so as soon as I heard that people were killing me, I'm going like, wait a minute, that's not cool. Next game, I'm going to make my character immortal. And so starting with Ultima 3, supposedly Lord British was immortal. But then what people found out is that if you attacked Lord British in his castle and say he was angry and would chase you down and kill you, if you ran out to the moat where there was a ship, which is what made me think of this, is if the player jumped on a ship and then moved the ship one sprite offshore, then Lord British couldn't reach him because he's standing on shore, and they could shoot the ship's cannons at Lord British. And that went through a different damage routine that I had not trapped for the immortality flag, and so they could kill Lord British. So, okay, I'm going to fix that next game. And then the next one was that they found that if there was a glass sword in the game that could kill opponents in one strike. And Lord British would not die. Even Lord did trap that, so you couldn't kill Lord British with that. But at night, Lord British would go to sleep, and when he was lying down, his icon was no longer Lord British; it was the sleeping character icon. And so, if you attacked him with a glass sword while he was asleep, you could kill him. It's like, oh, okay, how am I going to do the next one? And so this race went on until it was really only quite recent in my games we managed to really stop people. But now my team always puts in a back door. As there's always a way to kill Lord British in all of my games. There's never been a way for me to survive.
Well, I've just noticed Robert's in. I'm so glad you're here, sir, because when I heard that you were playing Ultima at the same time as us, I was so geeking out about that.
Yeah,
that's the hilarious thing. Like, Sid and I were playing at the same time when we were both on Deep Space Nine, but we didn't know each other was playing, and so we may have met. I don't know whether I was on Baja server. So by the time I got on, I think the game was maybe a year old by the time you split into servers, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, yeah, I was on Baja server. So I have no idea if Sid and I ever met. It's possible, I suppose.
Robert is one of the producers and one of the great writers of Deep Space Nine and the Star Trek that we did. So he was the brains behind it all, along with Ira.
Well, I gotta tell you, I think it's just like you find it fun to chat with me. I gotta tell you, not only of course as every human on Earth I think is a big Trek fan, but I always find it really shocking when I find people in a completely different industry that I would have had no idea that they would have had time for, much less care about, any of the work that I or any of my friends have done. And so it's actually just really cool for me too to realize that people working on the stuff that I've admired actually were back then were playing my games and I had no idea.
And I played Ultima, I think, probably for like 3 years. I was in a guild that migrated from Ultima to multiple other games over the next 15 years or so. And so there's people that I'm still in contact with, same as Sid, that I started playing Ultima with all those years ago. And still, half the time think of them as their characters more than their more than their real names. And it's the same thing what Sid was saying, like, you know, people were pretty private, and then eventually, like, the reality of it would leak out bit by bit. Yeah, it was it's an amazing and one of the most fun things I ever did was my guild. There was a castle that was rotting near our guild keep, and we camped that thing for like 5 days in a row, I think, waiting for it to fall down. Because in Ultima, like, there was a limited amount of real estate after a while. Like, all these people would build castles, and they were all like butting against each other in the areas where you could build them. And real estate turns out to be like a super valuable commodity in the game. And so my guild camped this rotting castle for like a week until it fell down, and then immediately like put up all these buildings as quick as we could, and like had to fight all the other people off who were trying to do the same thing. It was really fun. And again, like, I don't even know if you anticipated that. Like,
well, in fact, Ultima Online was the first time that virtual assets and real estate began to sell on eBay for real dollars.
Oh yeah,
no, we were just shocked as we were just shocked as anybody. Yeah, we should have kept a cut, which we didn't. But you know, in fact,
you made enough money to go into space. You're good.
Yeah, I'm all right. But it is interesting, yeah, that more money went back and forth through real estate and swords and things than went through what came in through the game's subscription. But yeah, I can't tell you how shocked we were. Also just sitting on eBay, watching people list things like a sword or a chunk of land, and we see these prices going up to like $10,000 US dollars for a 16 tile by 16 tile shop in the middle of, say, Trinsic, which was one of the really active.
Trinsic was exactly where we were camping this rotting castle.
Yes.
It was
the most valuable real estate in the game.
Yeah, and we had a giant amount of real estate in Trinsic, but it wasn't enough. We kept wanting more, so that was what we were doing.
Of course, yeah, but it was shocking. And then we were sitting there too, like going, like, what do we do about it? Do we? We're thrilled to see it happening. I mean, it's a statement to the success of it all, but it also was scary in the sense of, we were writing a game that was not written to even remotely to banking standards of data corruption and safety. And so we knew that whenever there was a glitch in the game, much less if somebody stole it from you, literally a thief went and stole that sword from you or the deed to your house or your ship or whatever it was, that would really piss people off. And, so the bruised egos and potential lawsuits were substantial. Yeah. And it was a fascinating time.
We tried to do for a long time. I was on elementary too, and we tried to do for a long time, sort of inspired by that, a whole subplot where people were money laundering on a virtual game. I think we were leaning more into Eve Online, which is a Wild West type game now, but the whole idea of like blowing up literally millions of dollars of real world assets in these games, like that castle that fell down was probably worth, like you said, $5,000, $10,000, and somebody just like stopped playing and let their castle rot. And it's just like,
and by the way,
money. Like,
on the subject of money laundering, while I really literally don't have any true evidence, it seems to me that it's unquestionably was happening.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, you spend 6 years on a mystery show, you think about all kinds of illegal crap all day long. And there's definitely money laundering going on in, especially I think it was WoW. People were thinking there was an Eve, both were places where there was like real money laundering going on. Gold farming was a thing. It still is a thing. I
still
think.
Is. Yeah.
It started, I think, on Ultima, but really took off on like EverQuest and WoW.
Yeah, I think WoW was the king. I was a WoW player, and I would save time by buying gold, and and I knew very well that I was sending that money over to China to
and some poor bastard sitting in a sweatshop. Exactly, it's a bunch of people in a sweatshop playing this game that you love, but they're just playing to get the highest value items over and over and over and over and over again because they could sell it on eBay.
Yeah, and of course at its worst in the gold farmers, we would see them in our game in Ultima Online. We were trying to stop them, but one of the main reasons we were trying to stop them is that they would set up bots that would kill players. And so when they would find the optimal place, the optimal hunting ground to mine, they would defend that territory in a way that was harmful to the pleasure of the players in the game.
Yeah.
And so we really, we're not only offended by them taking money that we thought should come to us anyway, but also the fact they were really hurting the gameplay. But as a consumer, I understand it because, like, again, I bought gold on WoW, and I wasn't high enough level to run into the bots.
Yeah.
Sid, what was your guild called?
I have absolutely no recollection.
Colin, do you remember?
Well, the one we have, the recent ones we have are like Jihadi Penguins. We have a guild.
Yeah. What game is that?
That's the kind of name that we. So if you see that sort of name, it's ironic.
What game is that? The Jihadi Penguins are in.
That is.
That was our band on Rock Band.
That was our band on Rock Band, and it was our game. We also called it.
We all had wool hats.
That's my brother Tom. We all had little wool hats, penguin hats.
Nice. The Division 2. That's the one.
Division 2 was also Jihadi Penguins.
I don't remember ever seeing any guild with that name. So
we never did very well.
I just joined like a big guild. I was like, and I do that most of the time when I game. I like, it's a big guild that has their crap together, and I'll just like, because I don't want to work that hard. Like every time ending up being a guild leader in one of these guilds, it's just a nightmare. I just hate it. It's just like, why did you appoint me? No, stop. No, I don't want that. Hey, I have a doctor's appointment, so I gotta go. But I just wanted to say happy birthday, and it was
Robert,
great.
Thank you so much,
Lord British, so much. And what an amazing thing. And hopefully, I'll have some time to like come on and chat more.
We'd love that. We'd love that.
We'll figure out with Mel. Happy birthday, dude.
And thank you, Robert, and thank you to Lord British.
Indeed. A pleasure to be with you.
You are an extremely busy man. The generosity is much appreciated.
My pleasure. Hope to circle back again sometime socially. So.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thanks, Robert.
All right, we have. I think Colin about fell out of his chair.
Yeah, I have to hold it together because everybody's watching.
He's going to collapse later.
Jeremy, where are you?
Yes, I'm in Colorado.
Okay, brilliant. Yes, it looks like it. It's lovely to see you.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. I've been kind of being wowed one after another over the last hour and a half. And you're about to do the same thing, aren't you? Tell everybody what you do so that, because we're all from different crazy walks of life here.
So I am an astrophysicist, and I study the universe and black holes.
Oh my God, okay, it's another obsession of mine. Oh, that's astonishing. So what is, I mean, obviously there's a lot of information, a lot of interest in black holes right now because I am such a dunce. Please, I really am. I'm not a physicist. I'm not a mathematician. I have no understanding of any of those things except I am a physics fancier. Less than an amateur physics buff, but there's a story about, because black holes are now leaking information, and is that a real thing? And there's problems with from the Einstein model to the Hawking model, and now trying to get through a sort of string theory issue that they're figuring out that there's radioactive leakage. Is that a thing? Is that something that's because nothing is supposed to escape a black hole?
Yeah, that's a maybe thing. We don't know.
What's your area? What isn't a maybe thing?
I do mostly observing with telescopes. So I will point telescopes at black holes and stars and galaxies.
Yeah.
But I spend my time actually looking up.
That's just amazing. And I know that a lot of people in this club, and I know you don't really know who I am probably, but I'm really grateful that you came to talk to us, because a lot of people, there are kids who want to be astrophysicists, and there are people who are are incredibly fascinated by the whole thing, who are here and listening to everything. And I've got the responsibility of trying to ask the right questions in a really complicated field. What got you into? How did you start? How did you begin? Did you start from a math place or a physics place?
I actually started from an economics place.
Wow. Okay, that's
shocking. But then I took my first class as an undergraduate in astronomy, and I was hooked.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about where you work, because you probably have quite. I mean, in Colorado, you're probably somewhere with quite clear sky. I mean, you've got a big, I imagine, more than a sort of foot-long telescope.
Yeah. So we mostly use telescopes in space. We don't get to visit those.
Yeah.
And we use other telescopes on the ground around the world. There aren't actually any good ones in Colorado. You're probably familiar with some of the ones in California.
And Hawaii. And,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
In Chile.
Absolutely. I mean, they seem just like magical pods to me. But the vast mirror arrays that are being built, that's going to be a quantum leap in terms of technology and telescopes. Yeah, they're polishing these things as we speak.
Yes, the Europeans are building the biggest telescope. They call it the Overwhelmingly Large Telescope, or
Such
OWL.
a scientific name.
Yeah,
that's what you guys have a sort of a dry wit, because you don't refer to there are astronomical numbers and you call them very big numbers. That's actually what you call them. They don't have this special name or anything. Very large object. Let's try and demystify the black hole, although it quite rightly has a mystique because it is mysterious inherently. What is a black hole?
A black hole is any object that gets compressed enough that it gets so dense that light can no longer escape its gravity. Most of them are stars, but you could take anything and just crush it down. If you made it small enough, it would become a black hole.
So it's a very, very massive object, is what it is.
It's a very dense object. You could make a black hole out of a very low mass object if you compressed it enough.
And this is it generates gravity.
That's right. I mean, everything makes gravity. You know, people make gravity. Anything with mass makes gravity. And so all that matters is whether you can make the object so compact and dense that there's a point from which light cannot escape anymore.
That's pretty intense, because light is fairly fluid. It's fairly mobile.
That's right. Yeah.
So
the other way to think about it is that light is like a fish swimming through water.
Yeah.
And near the black hole's event horizon, the water or the space-time is actually flowing inward as fast as light can swim outward. And so there's a point at which light just sits in place and cannot escape anymore.
When you look up at the sky, you're looking at things that we're seeing sometimes hundreds of thousands of years later than in the present, right? Because of the nature of light getting to us and how quickly it is able to do that, and hence light years, etc. So how do you extrapolate from some of the radio, whatever it is that you're seeing? You're going to have to help me here, because you're so far advanced of anything I could possibly have. But how do you extrapolate photographs of planets, visual photographs of planets that you're receiving really radio waves? How do you turn the numbers you're getting into an artist's representation? And how can you do you think they're accurate? Because I'm assuming you see actual things with the naked eye, or are you seeing just a stream of numbers?
A lot of the times it's numbers. We can take images, but for context, we have never actually seen an image of another star besides the sun. But we think we know what other stars look like, right? They look a lot like our sun, or bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
And so we infer all that sort of information, even about nearby stars, from looking at their properties, like their colors or their spectra, which tells us what they're made of. And so it's mostly based on things like measurements and inferences. and physics.
And that is working hand in hand with theoretical mathematicians, or is this the bailiwick of astrophysicists specifically?
It's really physics and observations.
How did you? I mean, when you first went, I am going to be an astrophysicist, and obviously you had to go through an enormous amount of work. Turning from an economist into a physicist, what was there were there inspirational moments along the way? Were there people that really just made you go, I've just got to be like this. This is the kind of thing I really want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. My undergraduate advisor basically dumped me at a telescope for the summer, so I got to play around with a telescope all summer and up at Palomar Observatory, in fact, in San Diego. And so it was that experience of just exploration and discovery on one's own that got me hooked.
Oh my goodness. And describe a day, just if you don't mind, could you describe just an ordinary day at work, not COVID, but just what would your just day at work, obviously you're going to have a cup of coffee or something when you get up.
Yeah.
How does your day evolve? Because it must just mind-boggling to most people.
We will get up and we'll look at everything that was published in the last day overnight that came in. So we'll look at publications, and then I might meet with students, like graduate students, and talk to them about their work and their progress. And then I might teach a class. Right now I'm teaching a class on Python, which is a computing programming language. And then we'll try to do some science at some point. We might have stayed up all night to do observing remotely at some distant observatory.
And what do you think is the most exciting thing that you either you anticipate, or you think, or you're crunching the numbers on right now?
One of my favorite things is about black holes is called the no hair theorem, which says that black holes have no hair. That's the theorem. That's it. What's meant by that is that if you look at the sun, and you shouldn't look at the sun, but if you were to look at an image of the sun, you'd see it's got a lot of hair. It's got a lot of features and things going on. Yeah. It's not just a spherical thing. And so if I want to describe the sun completely, I would need an incredible amount of information. But black holes are not that way at all. They're more like elementary particles. They're described by 3 numbers: charge, mass, and spin, and that's it. And so they're thought to have no hair. They don't have any features or ripples or identifying characteristics besides those 3 basic numbers. But that's a theorem, and we're trying to test that theorem. And I think that's really exciting, is that we can actually start to approach that now and ask, do black holes have hair?
What is a particle?
That one's easier than some.
Okay.
It's just an indivisible little item of matter or energy. So that can't be subdivided anymore.
Right. Okay. That's really good. That's really interesting. Yeah. And it can. And when it comes to things, I assume quantum is part of your field as well. I mean, that must, because gravity and everything that's going on is all sort of tied together, and increasingly we realize that these things are all interconnected or synergistic in certain ways. We're just trying to find out what that synergy is, I imagine.
That's right.
Because I'm fascinated by quantum. I'm fascinated by what might seem like crackpot theories, like multiple universe theories and the infinite Big Bang and all these things which just seem physically possible but not probable. Or no, they're probable. They just seem. But it's where do you come down on that? How do you approach? Because that would have been 10 years ago. That you would have gone, well, you're going to have no friends if you start telling people that there's multiple universes. But now people in very smart academies are talking about it all the time.
Yes. So I'm happy to entertain those ideas. I try to draw lines between what is knowable or measurable and what is not. Science is very good at telling us where we should draw those lines, basically in terms of what we can know and what we are not allowed to know or cannot know. And so multiverse for me is in the, it'd be great, it'd be fine, I have no objection to it, but we probably cannot know.
Probably no chance but there's certainly lovely discourse on the subject. I mean, I think this is a philosophical thing, but and I'm a theme for this club, which I'm very grateful that you came and visited us, is really about how we can start working out ways to iron out the wrinkles in our own messy human existence, especially right now, where your own field, generally speaking, science is under attack, for example. The truth is just liquid and seems to be running out the door. And how do we start getting to talk to each other again in ways that are constructive and generous and relaxing and not hyperbolic? And there's something that I don't know if you think about this, because I've got a great friend of mine is a math stroke physicist as well, and he's a great lover of art, and I'm sure you are in some way, and because we're kind of doing the same thing, we're trying to expose truth, you very empirically and us very abstractly, very suggestively. And I have this notion that when I look out into space, I can lie on the grass with my head looking into sky and just be very content with my place in the world. But I get an enormously strong sense, and I don't mean this in any kind of kooky way, of the interconnectivity of things. And one of the reasons why I'm excited by reading about your field and why these very large numbers and this very broad canvas that you're working on, this is literally billions, infinitely large space, is that I feel as connected to the furthest thing that you describe as I am to the sandwich I just made for lunch, or the person, because these particles that make us up, there's a strong sense of at least metaphorical entanglement with everything. And I really am excited by that as a possible starting place for going forward, so that there isn't an us and them thing in science. It's not like, we all speak Greek and you guys, fight for food, which is what a lot of people are trying to think scientists do. They're elitists and they're bought out by big corporations. How do you think we're going to overcome this sense of this laziness in society, where we just believe whatever we're told without really checking around and reading around subjects, which has led, of course, to us distrusting the very thing that we're supposed to trust most?
Well, you've hit on a lot of that, but I'm a big fan of Carl Sagan's notion of a baloney detection kit that we should all cultivate and get out routinely.
Yeah.
And just exercise scientific skepticism.
Yeah.
That's what I try to teach my students, is to be very skeptical. Skeptical doesn't mean cynical, though, right?
Absolutely.
And
cynicism is really not good.
I don't know if this is interesting to you all, but a little tidbit about us sort of being all connected is there's a really funny thing that happened in the early universe, maybe in the first few milliseconds after the Big Bang, where there was a huge amount of matter and antimatter. And there was a tiny imbalance. There was a tiny bit more matter than antimatter, like a part per billion. And that is what all the matter we see around us today is, that tiny, tiny imbalance. And everything else is just light. And we got very lucky that we didn't wind up in a universe that's strictly full of light and no matter at all. So everything we see around us is from that little quirk and that little lucky circumstance that we don't yet understand.
Yeah.
But so I'd like to ask this question of students: why do we exist? And part of the answer to that is, well, there's this funny little imbalance in the early universe. Big thinking, connects everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think it helps us think about our place and how we all sort of share this sort of common origin.
Yeah. I mean, kids especially are, in a sense, a little bit frightened of the existentialism of everything. The way, what do we mean? What is the point of us? What do we do here? I mean, grown-ups are too. I mean, a lot of people are. But if you think of it in that sense, if you think of it in the sense that we are just part of a system that just does not tolerate being questioned on those terms, and that we're an essential part of it in the same way as the trees are to us, at least on some local level. Then you can pretty much go, well, that does mean something, and now I can work on important stuff like getting on with my friends, and we don't have to worry about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the answer to everything. So yeah, you have a bunch of students. Do you have an issue with, or are you beginning to? Because I remember when I was at university, it was a very long time ago now, but there was the lack of interdisciplinary cooperation was really obvious. It was really obvious in reading, actually, really obvious in reading journals. Like, my goodness, if you'd only talked to a chemist, you would really not have to deal with all this. Do you find there's a groundswell of interdisciplinary, I mean, between art and science? I mean, the whole, 9 yards.
It is getting much better, yes. And I've had artists come and talk to me about various things. It's much better than it used to be. And I think in large part, it's because we can now communicate more easily.
Absolutely. And there's no sense of like authorship, that the internet has kind of obliterated that jealous guarding of secrets that really everybody should own. Well, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you took time out of your stargazing to come and talk to us. I'm sorry that I was a bit incoherent, but it really is it's a difficult bus to jump onto when I'm talking about computer gaming and then quantum and galaxies and black holes and I could actually talk to you for hours if I was let off the leash, because there was so much I'd love to talk about, especially given theory, and especially want to learn. And if people would, if we can do anything, is inspire some of the youngsters in this group, and there are a lot of them, who feel intimidated by pure math and theoretical math and the various offshoots of physics and chemistry particularly. But don't be, just wade in, and the language is simple, because once you get into the habit of looking at it, because I know that all the people you see are so advanced, they already know their theoretical stuff, at least in terms of the language.
Let me just say for everybody listening that we all have these weird ideas of who can be a scientist, but really anyone can be a scientist. And we encourage all types of people from all walks of life to become and to get engaged in scientists and as scientists. And also there's this huge movement now online for citizen science, where you can find some scientific topic you're interested in, actually participate these days and contribute to the scientific endeavor, whether it's biology or physics or chemistry or whatever it is.
That's great. Is there one book or series of lectures or something on YouTube that you think is a wonderful 101 unlocking the language of science? Because I think that's the biggest barrier, to just help people over the hump of that, to go, you know what, I know we talk in terms of numbers and ratios and things, but this will help. This will break it down. It's not as complicated as it seems. Numbers we need because language is limited.
There was a show called Connections. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
It was on public television.
Yeah.
I thought that was a lovely introduction to these sorts of concepts.
Wonderful. That's great. That's what we should look at. And I know I've talked to youngsters in the club who are simply intimidated. They just don't. They much rather they shoot for the end of the lawn instead of the moon. And hopefully we can nudge them, push them off their chairs, and say, "Go on, have a go."
Absolutely.
You could be an economist. Yeah. And end up an astrophysicist. How wide a gulf is that? Oh, thank you. I'm very grateful.
Well, thank you very much for your interest.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody.
Mel, such a fantastic job. Seriously, this is a birthday present Sid will never forget.
Yeah, it was beautifully produced. It was shocking and delightful and varied. All wonderful, and wonderful talking to everybody, right through to Jeremy, about things that I geek out about. And it was a really lovely theme. Thank you.
I can't say how thankful I am. Like, when we have our big Thanksgiving prayer next week, you know, my thanks are going out to this group.
You are terrific. Thank you very much. Everybody should take credit for this group. It's not Mel or me, and it's, you know, we are all building it at the same time.
Yes, but whether you mean to or not, you have a very like comforting aura. And I think everybody just sort of feels okay as long as you're talking. So that's why we all keep coming back here. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, sir.
Thanks to Mel and all the people who organized this, some doses of the medicine that you are handing out bi-weekly to all of us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I feel really blessed. Thank you very much. I'm honored.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to all of our special guests.
Yeah, thank you, all of you. And thanks for making it a great birthday. I will never forget it. How about that?
I have it recorded, so.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday,
Sid. Happy birthday. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you,
Mel.
Happy birthday. Well done, Mel.
Thank you, Sid.
Amazing job.